humble beginnings are not a bad thing at all. In fact, I think that when you start with humble beginnings, when you start with absolutely nothing, that is what actually breeds appreciation for when you do have something. And I know this because I have lived it. When I came out of my dad's house, I had zero experience. I had maybe an eighth grade education, absolutely no work experience. I can't even drive, y'all. I had pretty much been trapped in the same environment in complete isolation for most of my life. So when I came out of that, I had no idea what I was doing. I went on to get my GED, and then I got my first job, which was a commercial chicken laying house. And if you've never seen one of those, it's basically a massive, massive chicken house with thousands upon thousands of hens. And when they lay an egg in the box, if they lay the egg in the box, it rolls onto a conveyor belt, and then you turn the conveyor belt on, and then the eggs come up to the front of the house. And then basically you're in this mad race to pick them all up and put them into flats before they just pile up on you, and you have to stop the belt and then catch up with the eggs. And we're just talking like thousands of eggs, right? A day. And I actually got pretty good at that, with being able to stay decently ahead and put those eggs into those flats. And then after the eggs were gathered, you'd walk the houses and you would pick up any of the dead birds, pick up any eggs that didn't make it into the boxes. And especially in the summer, it was disgusting. Like, you did not leave that place without smelling like chicken crap. And I can't say I enjoyed that job at all. But as a girl who had absolutely nothing, who was living and depending on my grandma at that time, it was so nice to get a check every week, to have my own money, to pay for my own phone, to buy my own clothes, and to handle those little things for myself. So I was extremely grateful for that job. And even though that was like the low of the low jobs, really, I was so grateful for that. And I was so determined to do a good job and to work as many hours as I could. And it was really quite, even with that, it was like that confidence boost to be like, oh, wow, I can work and make my own money. So then fast forward, I get married and I have 2 kids in 2 years, and we're living on a sawmill income in a 2-room cabin that was set in the woods. We did not have much money coming in. And if you know anything about the sawmill business, it's very dependent on weather and timber cuts and all of that stuff. So if the weather's bad and the trucks can't get back to where the timber is being cut, then they can't haul into the sawmill. And so then you don't have work. And I can actually remember the time that my husband finally was making enough money and we were able to afford to buy cheese. And I know that sounds crazy, but I remember celebrating buying cheese because we could not afford, like, we were living on the bare minimum of food, and we couldn't afford to buy things like cheese. That's how tight things were. Around that time, I had the opportunity to get a camera, and we didn't have enough money to buy it outright. It was a half and half deal. So we had someone who went in half with me, and the deal is that if they went in half, then I would have the camera and could take photos for them for their social media and stuff. And so it worked out well because I worked and did that for free, but then I also had the camera. So that was amazing. But the thing is I knew nothing about how to use a camera. So I went to YouTube University and I watched tons of videos and I taught myself how to shoot decent pictures. Yeah, looking back, these photos were very, very mediocre. But you know what? I am really proud of myself for starting and doing that anyway. And I was also struggling with postpartum depression, and I needed something that was mine. Something that wasn't just baby's dishes and surviving home life, right? So looking back, that was such a God thing because He knew I needed something that would grow my confidence so that it could spill over into other parts of my life. And so that's what happened. I started super small. So, like, I did the photos for that social media, and then I started shooting still life photos. So, like, close ups of flowers and the random things that I thought were cool. I still have some of my art on my walls, actually. And I named my first business Welch Photographic Art. I thought if I could like go to thrift stores and find frames and matte prints, and then I could print the photos and make it into like that wall decor type thing. And then I could sell that wall decor on eBay or whatever. But, wall art is not exactly a booming market, or at least it wasn't when I was trying to do it. But there was a start, and I even remember doing like a local, what they called art walk, and I had my art set up, and I didn't make a single sale, but I stood there, like, and I displayed my art, and that was huge for me. And I have to say that it wasn't like I just somehow experienced and gained this confidence. I remember feeling really silly to even start this business or to call it a business. And for the longest time, it was business in name only, but I really treated it like it wasn't something that was important. And I felt imposter syndrome so bad because I saw other businesses, and I knew that I had a long ways to go to get to that point. And I really, for the longest time, I didn't do a lot of talking about the fact that I even had a business. I just kind of quietly grew it. And so if you're under the impression that I just got this camera and somehow gained this confidence overnight, definitely did not. It was such a learning process. And even today, with a successful business, I still struggle with that imposter syndrome, with the almost feeling a little bit sheepish and like, yeah, I have a business. If you want to check it out. And so, yeah, those were things that I was completely going through. So then my cousin got engaged, and I asked if I could do her engagement photos for free just to practice. And that's when I started really falling in love with people photography. And then I got my first wedding gig, and I made a whopping $200. I was really, I was doing pretty good. I remembered going to that wedding and praying so hard that God would help me know what to do, because I had barely even been to a wedding. I had maybe been to 3 weddings in my entire life at that point, and one of them was mine. So I had no idea what I was doing. But you know what? That wedding went so well. And I would show those pictures now, but no, probably not. It's super embarrassing. But that doesn't matter. The bride, I believe, still loves them, and that's what matters. And that was the beginning of like really getting more serious about my business. So why am I telling you this story? Because if you are in a season right now where you are starting, where nobody's handing you something, where you don't have those skills yet, you don't even have the equipment yet, maybe, or the equipment that's what you actually want. You don't have any visibility. You're just in that bare first starting line, and you have that dream. I just want you to hear me that humble beginnings are not something to begrudge. They're not a punishment. They're not something bad. They are preparation. I remember when I first started my photography business, I would pray desperately for more clients, and I would get obsessed with trying to grow. It's like forcing the growth. But looking back now, if God had actually answered those prayers with a big yes that I had wanted, I would not have been able to handle it. I couldn't have served those clients well. I couldn't have handled that pressure at all. I was barely managing the 1 or 2 clients a month when I had that. God had to start me at the beginning so I could appreciate where I am now, so that I would know what it feels like to be a beginner, so that I can encourage other business owners now that are just starting out, or even anybody who's just starting out in anything. Like, I know how it feels. And whenever you grow slowly, there is something about that that just deepens your roots so that you can handle more and you can handle the opportunities when they do come. But boy, did I wrestle with God in that season. And let's just be real, I demanded that he gives me more business, and I didn't know why he wasn't growing me. And I questioned it all when things were slow. I was like, why am I even doing this? Should I be doing this? And I would watch other photographers growing, and I would feel like, well, I don't think people even care. I would just feel almost forgotten, you know? But then, as such faithfulness of God, because I don't even know how I did this, he would help me, and I'd pick myself back up, and I would just continue moving forward, just like that one small consistent step. So while I was doing those one small consistent steps, I want to talk about how I feel like God works a lot in situations. And that is, and the Bible backs this up, is that if you cannot handle what you have been given well, then you're not going to be able to handle more. So how did I steward what I actually had? Well, I did my utmost best to serve every client to the best of my ability. Even when my skill set was limited and I was not taking great pictures, and I look back and I cringe, but I do have to realize that I gave my very best at the level that I was at. And I do feel like that God gave me courage to keep going, and I would follow through, and I delivered on what I promised. And I learned that through repetition and trial and error, how to run a business well, so that when more clients came, I was ready for them. And now my business, it looks completely different. And I want to share that if you're in the beginning, if you continue faithfully to move forward and to do the very best you can stewarding what you have, then you will get to a point where you start reaping those blessings. Because now in my business, I get to be super selective with who I work with. I shoot only at one wedding venue, and that's ones that my best friends own. I get all the weddings that I need through that. I only take sessions on my farm. Like, I don't travel for sessions anymore. And I now have the ability to block off dates and to pick and choose how much I want to work so that I can serve the smaller amount of clients very well. And I make a decent income with it. I mean, you know, I could make more if I wanted to, but I have other life stuff that goes on. And it's so wild to think that in my first year, I was barely grossing maybe a couple $100. And now here I am with my business, and I have the ability to not take jobs if I don't want to. Being able to reap that fruit, I am completely blown away by the faithfulness of God and the fact that he did not give me what I thought I wanted at the time, but that he grew me so that I could handle now this way bigger version than when I started back in 2015. You know, looking back, I can tell you that I really, really appreciate, because I remember what it was like to work in a chicken house and make money. And I remember the 2-room cabin, and I remember celebrating the cheese, and I remember receiving the $200 for that first wedding gig. And now that I can buy any dairy product I want, and I can take select clients, it's completely humbling, the process and the goodness of God. So if you are in the small beginnings right now, I just want to encourage you to serve who is in front of you and serve them well. Master where you are right now. And I know this can be hard, but stop obsessing over growth. Learn to be faithful in the little. And after you are faithful in the little, that is when God will grow it and you will be able to be faithful in more. Do not despise the slow growth. Slow growth is really good. There's no such thing as overnight successes. And if somebody does happen to go viral online or something, it's very much short-lived. And if you ask anyone, no one makes their full income from one viral video. Don't despise the slow growth. That's what actually builds something that's lasting, that builds something that's meaningful, and that's what prepares you for the life that you are praying for right now. I really hope this was encouraging to you, and if you enjoyed this episode and you know someone who's in those small beginnings, share this with her. And as always, the best way for you to support this podcast and support me is to go and follow the podcast, to leave a review. And if you want to see small clips of our ins and outs of life, I encourage you to follow me on social media. I'm most active on TikTok, but I also repurpose videos on YouTube and Instagram. So until next time, live courageously and steward what God has given you well.